Welcome to Dear Brother Podcast. This is my evening show. This is the first time I'm doing an evening show. Usually, I do all my shows in the morning. I do a 6 a.m. show, but welcome to the Dear Brother Podcast, everybody. Again, this is my first time doing the evening show. I didn't start this podcast. I started this podcast because I need a community, right? I think sometimes people start podcasts because they are the authority. I want to say that I'm not the authority on anything. What I will say is like any other brother, I've been through hell and back. I've been through divorce. I lost a child before, right? I buried my parents early. My father was 59 when he passed away. I eulogized my father. My mother was 62. She died of cancer in 10 months. I buried my daughter. She was 4 months old. I had nowhere to go, right? I had nowhere to go. I had nobody to talk to, right? So before I get into any teaching, let's just introduce ourselves to each other, gentlemen, right? That's what I've been through in life, and I didn't have nowhere to go, just like many of you, right? Some of you are going through stuff right now as a man. You're going through stuff as a husband, as a father, and there's nowhere to go, right? And a lot of times, a lot of women will say, I'm here for you, this and that, but a lot of times women can't fully grasp all of what a man is suffering, right? So I didn't start this podcast because I'm some brilliant genius. I started this podcast because I know there are men just like me who are trying to find a place to land that's safe, right? And a lot of times a place to land that's safe for men is a place of communication. Where can I communicate this pain that I'm going through? Because I'm gonna tell you guys, and I think a lot of when you get to a place of maturity, in my young 20s and 30s, I thought I could do anything. I thought that I could conquer the world. But I think as a man, I'm 44 now, and for some of you that's in your 35s, 40s, some of you in your 50s, you understand that the caveman mentality just don't get you through life well, right? The tough guy mentality just don't get you through life well. I'm finding out, guys, that vulnerability is the way to live in peace. Because I'm going to tell you, gentlemen, a lot of times the peace we're looking for is the peace that we don't give ourselves, right? Right? We look for peace in our wives. We look for peace in our kids, right? The concept that's been joked about, we want a woman to be our peace. But let's talk right quick, guys. The question is, when was the last time you became your peace? A lot of times we're our own chaos. There's many days as men, we are our own chaos. Why? Not because we're bad men. A lot of times we become our own chaos because we live in here, right? We even give ourselves answers from here, right? And we try to tough our way through. But there comes a day, man, where you can't tough your way through. I couldn't tough my way through burying my child. I couldn't. And for some of you brothers out here who are listening now, and for some of you who will listen to the podcast later on, that have lost a child, you can't tough your way through that. I'm gonna tell you, to this day, I had triplet daughters. We lost our oldest, Lydia. My daughters will be 18 in January. And this 18 years have gone by. And honestly, guys, I can say I have not grieved the loss of my daughter. I couldn't. I couldn't grieve her because, like we do as men, I had to take care of my wife at the time. You understand? I had to get her through the death of my child. Had to get her through the death of our child. So in me trying to be a man, see, people tell us how to be a man. The hardest thing is that a lot of times people don't tell you how to, right? Right? Growing up, we hear that, be a man, be a man. But a lot of times people don't tell us the instructions. How do I accomplish that? What exactly is that? Because the truth is, a lot of us have guessed at what manhood is. We've had to guess. For the men out there who didn't have a father in the house, you had to guess what manhood is. And one of my biggest things for this podcast, gentlemen, is to take the pressure off your back. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to take the pressure off your back because for some of you that walk around in guilt and shame, you lived a life trying to figure it out. You lived a lot of your life trying to figure it out. How do I love? How do I become a father? Because there's no rule book to this, right? And you've tried to figure it out. A lot of men of you fallen into depression, right? And we talk about this stuff with ladies. Ladies will talk about their feelings and their hurts and their pains. But in a way, it's a way where we feel like we got to go on. We got to move on. I've moved on, brothers. I've moved on. The problem is you can move on and your heart hasn't moved on with you. Y'all hear me? You can move on, but as a man, sometimes your heart didn't follow you. You're still stuck in a place, right? Because as men, we know, oh man, just get over it. But the truth is, we never get over some things. Some things are just on our back. And so, what I want to talk about today, gentlemen, I want to talk a little bit today about how to recover, right? I want to talk about how to recover, how to rebuild your life, right? Again, I had to rebuild my life after losing my daughter. I had to rebuild my life after eulogizing my parents. I had to rebuild my life after a toxic marriage, right? Where someone was out to really try to kill me. You understand? I had to rebuild myself. And so that's what I want to talk about today for guys. How do you rebuild yourself after big setbacks? How do you rebuild yourself and not just move on with life, but rebuild yourself? Because a lot of us guys have moved on, but we haven't rebuilt ourselves, right? Then there's some of us who have just become another character to avoid having to rebuild yourself. That's another thing us men we go through sometimes. You just put on another character. You become the go get money guy, right? Right? So we don't have to deal with the pain of what has happened to us, or we'll be the guy that I'm just gonna go get as many shorties as I can, right? To suppress the pain. How many of you gentlemen out there, my brothers, have suppressed your pain by becoming another character? You put on a character, right? And that character doesn't last, because I'm gonna tell you, Superman gets tired, gentlemen. Superman gets tired. What happens when your Superman suit is too tight and the cape don't fit no more, right? What happens when you're breaking down and you can't save everybody else? There's one person you gotta save. You gotta save you. Why? Because in order for you to care for the things you want to care for as a man, in order for you to care for your bride, your girlfriend, your children like you want to, there has to be some self-investment. And that's a hard conversation for some of us, man. Self-investment is a hard conversation for some of us because it's hard to invest when sometimes you don't even think you're worthy of the investment, right? Sometimes the past can haunt us as men and make us not feel worthy of investing again. Then there's some of you brothers out there that just don't trust yourself, right? You made a decision, threw your life off. You don't trust yourself like you used to. I'm gonna tell you, there's some men. What men go through now, we go through hardship. The biggest thing men face now is loneliness, right? Another thing men face heavy is anger issues, and we're stuck. So let's get into it a little bit. Let me talk about this. The number one, I think that the best way for a man to rebuild his life, number one, is to redefine his identity. Redefine your identity. What you saying to us, Christian? I'm saying don't base your identity on the mistakes you made. You are not the mistake you made. I want to say that to somebody. I want somebody to really grab a hold of that today. You're not the mistake you made as a man. You're not. You're not the mistake you made, right? You've tied yourself to your flaws. You've tied yourself to different mistakes you've made in your life. And then another thing, there's people in your life that will help you tie yourself to your past. But I say it all the time, guys. Anybody that's committed to you, committed to reminding you of your past needs to stay right there in your past. Y'all hear me? Anybody who's committed to reminding you of your past needs to stay in your past. Don't let people hang on to your life that try to hold you in places that you have fought hard to get free from. You hear me, brothers? Don't let a woman come in your life and constantly try to keep you nailed to a cross that you fought your way to get off. You hear me? Because there's some people that will never forgive you. And your job is not to try to get them to. You know, the biggest forgiveness you need as a man is your own. You got to forgive yourself if you're ever going to get where you got to go in life, my man. If you're going to get where you got to go in life as a man, you have to forgive yourself. In other words, stop tying yourself to the mistake you made. I'm going to say it one more time. You are not the mistake you made. You're not. You're not. Let me throw this up right now, guys, right quick. Dear brother, the advice before I leave the show today, I got about maybe about 15 more minutes. Before I leave the show today, I want to put up Dear Brother, the advice. If you need some advice, any kind of advice, relationship advice, business advice, whatever it is, jump in the chat, man, and I will make sure that I cover those questions before I go today. All right. Thank you for everybody that's hanging out with me today. All right. So number one, you have to redefine your identity after a fall. After a fall, you have to get up from that and don't carry the baggage with you, brother. Don't carry the baggage with you. Right? Don't carry the baggage with you, and don't be with people that want to make you carry the baggage. Number two, embrace vulnerability. Right? Embrace your vulnerability as a man. See, if vulnerability is not, being vulnerable is not soft. Right? Being vulnerable is the only way to healing. Some of you that are going crazy in your mind right now, you wake up feeling bad about yourself. You can't find your footing. You know what you need? You need vulnerability. You can't tough your way through certain things, guys. There's certain ways that some of us grew up. You can't tough your way out of that. You got to be vulnerable enough to admit, man, that hurt. That hurt me as a man, right? For some of you married brothers, I want to talk to some of you married brothers who have been silent in marriage. You haven't said anything to your spouse because you don't want to hurt her feelings. Do you realize, brother, you're going to die inside of that marriage because you're refusing to be vulnerable inside of it? It's nothing less manly about saying what hurts you. It's nothing. The only road to healing is admitting where you were broken, right? The only way as a man to go forward is to admit you were broken. This is the thing. They don't teach us how to do that. As men, and you know, I do a lot of podcasting. I have a podcast for women called the Dear Sister Podcast. I have conversations with women all the time, and there's a real judgment upon men, you know? Men won't be honest, and men, right? You know why a lot of men, we won't be honest? Because we were never taught to be honest. From our childhood as men. From our childhood, what did they teach us? Get up, boy, right? You ain't hurt. Wipe some dirt on it. Boys don't cry, right? So here you are now, a 51, 52, 55, 35, 42-year-old man, still refusing to express what hurts you. It's a painful existence, brother. It's a painful existence. And you know eventually what that painful existence leads to? It leads to addiction. It leads to depression. It leads to thoughts about taking yourself off the planet. I'm going to tell you right now, brother, if you're going to survive this life, you're going to have to find a place of vulnerability to say when it hurt. Now, you got to find some people you trust to do that. You can't find your homie that's just going to laugh with you about your sorrow, right? I got some homies that will laugh with me through anything, but there are some days where you don't need anybody that's going to laugh with you. You don't even need somebody that's going to encourage you. As men, sometimes we need someone to get in our face and challenge us to see to check whether you're better than where you are right now. And for people listening to me, my brothers, I'm going to tell you, you are better than where you are right now. You're better than the last decision you made. You're better than the last mistake you made. You're better than, and you got to treat yourself like that. Again, if you won't forgive yourself, then there's no way out, because there are some people as men, there are some people that love to break you as a man, especially some toxic females would love to break you as a man, and they will hover pain over your head as long as they can. You got to realize that you have to take yourself off the hook. As a man, you got to take yourself off the hook, right? So number one, how to bounce back, how to bounce back from a setback as a man. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that's been through a setback, but I'm going to teach some brothers who've been through setbacks or can't locate yourself, right? That's what I want to help you do. I want to help you locate yourself as a man, help you find you again. Where are